All right. Well, welcome to Faith Unfiltered. My name's Drew.
My name's Luke.
My name's Taylor.
Okay, great. We got some new faces here in the podcast. All right. Long-time listeners, first-time callers right here.
That's right.
Right? Have you listened to our podcast yet?
I actually think I have. Maybe when you were first introduced.
How many times?
Maybe twice.
Okay. So
maybe.
He's one of the viewers.
But can I be honest? Never all the way through.
Okay, good.
I just want to be honest.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're glad you guys are here. Luke's an elder, been a long-time elder here at Freshwater. How many years have you been an elder here or partner? Or?
We started coming in 2014, I think. Maybe 10 years or so as an elder-ish. I'm not good at timeline.
Sure.
I've slept since then.
Okay, good. That's fantastic. Yeah, and then Taylor is lead pastor at Southridge Baptist Church.
Yeah.
How long you been there?
I've been on staff there for 7 years and been the lead pastor for 6.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that first year was kind of a seeing if they
trial
like
run.
you.
No, I got my permit.
Okay,
and then oh my gosh, passed the test.
Yeah, good.
You have a license.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And that's just right down the road here in Jeff City.
Yeah.
So we're glad that you're here with us.
I got something to say.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead, lead us off.
When we were nomadic, this is during COVID.
Yeah, it was during COVID.
Like when we left what we called the warehouse before we built our current facility.
Yeah.
We were hanging out in Southridge for, a year and a half?
It was around there. You worship Sunday evenings.
Absolutely part of Freshwater DNA, just great partnership. Had a lot of fun events in the back field there at Southridge with youth group events and stuff like that. So Southridge has been a good sister church, just a good friend of Freshwater over the years.
Yeah. That's good. You have one of the only fields in Jeff City that's flat at your church.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
So that's fantastic. Friend of Freshwater and a friend of me. We've been friends for a long time.
Yeah, since 2012, 2013.
Yes, ever since that snow day.
That's right.
And
Sledding down a hill together.
Me, you, and Mitch. Taylor was on my floor at school. We had a grand old time, and then Mitch was my roommate as well. And so, well, right now Robert and Chuck are somewhere over North Africa, so they'll be gone this week. And so we've got really the A team, because I would consider them the B team.
I was thinking the bottom of the bucket, honestly.
Well,
but here we are.
Yeah, scrape the bottom.
You guys were my first choices. Okay, and so we're gonna have a lot of fun unpacking the sermon. And looking at the text, we're gonna read that here in a second, but let's do that now, actually. So 1 Corinthians 1, 26 through 30, is that what it is?
Maybe through 31.
31, okay, I see that. I see the other small number here. I'm going to read this here. I don't need glasses yet, but I'm close. So here we go. For consider your calling, brothers. Not many of you were wise according to the worldly standards. Not many were powerful. Not many were of noble birth. But God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even things that are not, to bring to nothing things that are, so that no human being might boast in the presence of God. And because of him you are in Christ Jesus, who became to us wisdom from God, righteousness and sanctification and redemption, so that, as it is written, let the one who boasts, boast in the Lord. Yeah. Amen. And so as Robert preached this last Sunday, talking about really that we are fools for Christ. And so we've talked about this word foolishness really the past few weeks in our sermons, talking about the word foolishness and the paradoxical nature that God chooses those that we might not think would be chosen to accomplish his will. And so one of the first points that Robert talked about, and as this text kind of looks at here, is considering our calling and where we were when we first became Christians. And so, Luke Sumner, tell me what it was like for you when you became a Christian. What was the old Luke like?
Yeah, so I actually, the underlying question here is my testimony, right?
Yeah,
Who I was before Christ, what Christ did, and then who I am now. And for years I kind of struggled because I wasn't like a drug dealer and all that kind of stuff. I was saved as a 5-year-old boy, summer of 1986 at a VBS, and I don't have a poor memory. I've got a poor memory of timelines, and I've forgotten so much from my childhood. But one of the gifts God has given me is a clear like I have a snapshot in my mind of the backyard of when I realized how in trouble I was, like who I was from the inside out. And I prayed, I repented and believed that day with my grandma at a VBS in Sedalia, Missouri, 1986. And so I didn't have decades of just the world.
Yeah.
You know, like I grew up from the age of 0 in the church, and I was raised in that culture. And so by the grace of God, avoided a lot of the just dramatic things that we talk about in terms of the massive change that we see in people. Yeah. And so I struggled because I didn't have this really dramatic, exciting story of what I used to be. But somewhere in there, I realized this concept of there go I by the grace of God. And so it's like my testimony became increasingly important to me because I didn't have to have all those scars of years of just doing things the foolish, worldly way. And so
that's right.
I maybe didn't do all those things, but I certainly had the propensity and the trajectory to do those things, but God.
That's right.
And so, like the stock market, my life, walking with the Lord has had ups and downs and seasons of health and seasons of just my stupidity and my sin. But it's been a gift to know the Lord and to know what He has redeemed me from, not only what I see in the news with people struggling with or social media or whatever, but also knowing who I am in the flesh, capable of being, by the grace of God, I'm not. So,
yeah, absolutely. And honestly, what you said there is a prayer that I have for my young children. Taylor's got young children. You have 5 boys, okay?
Correct.
8 and under or 7 and under?
8 and under.
Okay.
5, 8 and under.
And that's a prayer that Liz and I pray every night for our kids.
That's good.
When we put them to bed, we ask that the Lord would save them young, and keep them from a pattern of sin. And so, I don't know if I can say looking forward when the Lord answers that. I'm expectant, but also not thinking that I ought to receive something like James says. But at the same time, people do feel weird about that like, man, I was saved early.
Yeah.
Who's going to resonate with my story?
Yeah. Yeah. I heard a pastor once say, I did not need 20 years as a drug dealer to know the propensity of my flesh, right? That's even I have similar testimony to you, Luke, of coming to faith young. I don't really know a time where I wasn't a Christian, truly. But, going to the text, he chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. And life in the flesh, even as a redeemed person, you still know weakness, right? Like we still are really aware of our weakness. And so, we can still resonate with what God is telling us here in His Word, even if we didn't have that experience.
Yeah, so that's a fair point because we talk about the dramatic sins that God kind of like the pendulum swing, from that life. But to kind of shift gears a little bit, if you think about Paul's resume, like he was all these things, Pharisee of Pharisees, like, well, who was I? I was a dumb little kid. Like I was a dumb little kid.
You were weak.
I was weak. Yeah. I was weak. I was small. I was not noble. I was nobody special. I wasn't pastor kid, missionary kid. Like I was nobody special. I was just a dumb little kid who knew almost nothing. But by the grace of God, He flipped that switch on in my heart. So the light came in, invaded the darkness. And so like maybe my weakness and my smallness and like my calling, like who I was before, it doesn't look like everyone else's, but it was still every bit as nothing for what I brought to the table for my salvation. So grateful for that.
Yeah, and even when you think about like our lives, like it's crazy that the Lord has chosen me to be a pastor at Freshwater.
I agree.
Yeah, you agree?
They really need it. The elders, we need to assess the elders here.
Well,
who they let in.
In fact, I think you were one of my references. So this is partly
your
your fault.
Yeah, no, it's on me.
But thinking that the Lord would use the foolish to accomplish His will, that resonates with me. Like, not very great in school, and honestly, not very motivated.
Oh, you were great.
In school.
You were always at class at 8 a.m.
Oh yeah, you were great. What was college Drew life like? If you could tell the listeners here.
I mean, he stayed up later than I did, and didn't love 8 a.m. classes. Yes. Liberal studies major.
Absolutely.
Did great, though.
Yeah.
A jack of all trades. And I mean that truly, actually, as a compliment. There's very little you can't do, Drew. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I remember trying to come and convince you to stay up later with me and hang out. You're like, no, I got classes, or I got to run in the morning. And I was like, dude, you are way more disciplined than me.
Yeah.
All that to say, like, if somebody looked at me in college, it's like, man, that That guy's got maybe potential, but he's not ready for a pastorate or things like that. And so I'm thankful that people like Dan Bourne, a pastor at Believers Church in Hannibal, kind of took what this text is kind of saying a little bit in the way of like, I'm choosing where the Spirit's leading me, and Dan really invested in my life, helped me to grow, helped me to really think biblically, helped me to, held me accountable to things. And, man, I'm so thankful for him, and I'm thankful that the Lord gave him kind of some Spirit's guidance to invest in me, even though there were other people in my class, in my dorm, in my friend circles that were like, he's the one that the Lord is going to use. And I'm not saying I've done a ton of great things. It's just like, man, what's happening at Freshwater, I feel so humble to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And I'm even on the caboose of it, of what the Lord's doing. And I'm just humble to see new faces each and every day, and to just dependent on him to continue to move.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off, Luke. That's one of the things I think that's so powerful about this passage all the time. It's just this repetition of God chose, God chose, God chose. Then at the very end, so that no one might boast, right? Us being aware of our weakness, recognizing that we've come from this place, it ought to have this effect of humbling us in the really appropriate and right ways, and exalting and glorifying God for his work, right? It's just like step back and say, holy cow, look at how good God is. Look at how gracious he is. Yeah. Look at his power. Look at his might, right? Not ours, his.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you were talking, kind of an underlying theme that has been raising up for me in this text is the word potential, because I think all of us can be guilty, whether it's, looking for elders or life group leaders or whatever. There's always kind of the obvious low-hanging fruit. But you see such a contrast, like high and low and rich and poor. Like, you see such a contrast in this text, but God sees potential. Whether you're looking at the little runt that becomes King David, or the list in Hebrews 11 of all these people that some of them are not great, in some ways, but they become great because of God, and he sees the potential, and the Spirit of God goes to work in them. And so whether it's a pastor or a teacher investing in you, and it's a lesson to me to not just look at what maybe is the most impressive spiritual resume, but I think that's part of leadership, is developing people and to see what they can become over time.
Yeah.
And God is the best at that. And I hope that we as leaders get a little dose of that attribute of seeing not just who they are now, not just what they're capable of now, but what God can do in them, and just see that potential, what they're capable of in time, if we continue to sharpen and invest and plant those seeds. So that's a reminder for me.
There's a huge bridge to leadership development in this text, and not only just seeing potential, but I think so quickly we can disqualify people in our own minds because of X, Y, Z in their life, and it's like, well, have you tried investing in them? Like, because if we believe the Lord can change people, because the Lord's changed me, he can change that person too. And that person, although they might not be ready to be a life group leader now, or may not be able to disciple somebody now, like, of course they're not, because that carrot hasn't been dangled in front of them yet, and they haven't aspired to be that. And so helping the Spirit get involved to really rid that out and help them change.
Yeah.
So stuff there. We kind of talked about this a little bit here. The other point was that God has chosen. Robert talked about how, we might look at people and think, man, if only the Lord could get a hold of that person, then all the influence they would have, the ability they would have, then that would truly change the world.
Like, God needs to save the rich and famous.
Yes.
And then that'd be a good plan for him.
Yeah. What does the Bible have to say about that thought, against that? Like, what would the word say about that, or is there any comments you have about that?
A passage that comes to my mind as you say that, Jesus is the rich young ruler leaves Jesus, and I think Jesus says something to the effect of how difficult it is for the rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. And the disciples say, well, then who can be saved?
They can't make it, who can?
That's right, exactly right. Yeah, it's like this, okay, well, those people, they're clearly blessed by God. They've got this, they're going to make it. And even Jesus there says, it's not that way. I take these who are outcasts, who are lowly, who do not have it together, and save them. And I think the reason God does that is that he might be more supremely glorified, right?
Yeah.
Like, boy, I'm gonna take one who is low, who is of little account in the world's eyes, and lift them up. And I don't know. That's where my mind.
Absolutely.
My mind went.
I think that's a great connection. Luke, got anything to add?
Well, I think this concept is a thread woven through the entire Word of God.
Yeah.
I mean, even in creation, if you look at just mankind and you measure them up, like, well, how am I going to fare against a bear or a lion? You know, like, we can't really outdo anything in nature when it comes to just animals, creatures, or whatever. Like, everything's stronger, faster, can swim, whatever. Like,
we sweat better than them. That's what we're actually best
right.
at. Yeah.
But
really?
Yes.
it's just one of those deals
Wow.
where God has set it up so that what are you supposed to do? Like, you're supposed to have dominion over all these things that are actually better at many things than you. Israel. Why? I've wrestled with this for years. Why? Like, why did God choose Israel? And I think part of this theme, like, were they impressive? Were they strong? Were they huge? Like, no. Compared to all the other nations that existed back then, they were pretty underwhelming. And why did they make it? Like, the Red Sea and everything else, why did they make it through? Because God. And the arrival of Jesus, not pomp, not circumstance. Like, it was just lowly, humble. So when you think about the nativity scene, it wasn't like a typical monarchy, like the new bloodline of the king. It's a barn lot. It's humble. It's low. And I mentioned earlier Hebrews 11. I mentioned King David. Like, God just has this rope-a-dope manner of doing the thing that mankind does not expect, so that God gets glory instead of man.
Well, that helps me when it comes to people in my life. There's people that I'm tempted to give up on, or people that that are too far gone, or people that I wouldn't imagine the Lord saving. And it's almost like the Lord in His Word is like, keep your eyes open, watch me work. Like, it's more impressive for the Lord to save them. Now, Lord can save all, even rich and famous, things like that. We don't want to discount that. But at the same time, He's almost telling us, like, keep your eyes open to those who are low, humble, and ready to receive the word too. You know, thinking about the rich young ruler too. Like, he had pride in his possessions. He wasn't willing to give them up. You know, when we share the gospel and proclaim Jesus, people need to be ready to hear it. Yeah. Words are hard.
Soup's hard, dude. Soup's hard.
Soups. Gotcha. All right. Next kind of thought that we talked about on Sunday was that God's foolish work shuts down all boasting, right? God's foolish works shuts down all boasting. And these things will kind of overlap as we're continuing to talk here, but I'll just be honest. Sometimes there's been times where I've been involved in someone being led to Christ, or someone that has been baptized, or someone who is making big decisions for the Lord, and there's temptation and sometimes sin that I start to think,
I'm pretty okay.
I nailed that. You know, like, or dude, that gospel presentation was so good. That's like, you know, I'm just telling you, you know, that's a temptation in all of us, is that when we see God work, sometimes there can be boasting in our own ability. The Lord shuts that down very quickly in His Word over and over again.
See, I did the inverse for. I remember my 20s quite a bit. I was working at growing in evangelism, and then if I didn't seal the deal, if I didn't make the sale, I would always analyze. Man, I should have said this. Or why didn't I think of that verse? Or I should have worded it different, or whatever. Like, I made it about me and like my methodology and how can I improve. And so I've kind of done that in verse, where it's like I didn't so much puff up the results I see, but I would blame myself when I did not get the results I wanted to see, as if it depended on me. And I don't know. It's kind of a harsh reminder to think about how much I tried to make their salvation dependent on my ability to add to the ingredients and make it happen.
What's interesting, as you both talk, the heart dispositions that came out of both of you, you know, and comes out of me too, absolutely the same way. They come from the same root, right? Your discouragement or kicking yourself, man, I wish I'd have that one back. And maybe us feeling good. Like, sometimes I'll be like, I preach sermons like, hey, I did all right today, you know? Both of them come from hearts that say, hey, this is about me and my work and my ability, and not a boasting in God. God's work, God's choosing, God's ability. And I think just that fountain, or that like fountainhead, if you will, of like self-righteousness, this is about me, this is about what I do, it can either lead to despair or puffed up conceit. And this passage really helps us to say.
Yeah.
So I got a question. I've heard it said that pride is the sin that births all other sins. So if you think about Lucifer, if you think about Adam and Eve wanting to be like God, like pride is the sin that births all other sins. You guys agree with that?
Sure,
for the sake of this conversation.
We're not gonna question.
Yeah. Good job, Luke. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that is the root issue is pride, but
Sure.
I don't know. I've thought about that a lot, and maybe not, but
No.
it's certainly tied into so much
Well,
of who we are.
God hates sharing glory with other people. He wants it all.
Yeah.
And so, like, when he saves people, like, the reason I think he uses people, like, as Robert said, Joseph, King David, things like that. Like, it leaves no doubt that, this was the Lord.
It's a work of God.
Even, David slaying Goliath, like,
Right.
that's not his ability. That's the Lord's ability in him.
Yeah.
Lastly here, the last kind of point is that Christ is everything. And this will bring a little even more application to us. Is Robert talked about in his sermon of like, be almost foolishness to the world by the way that you live your life, because Christ means that much to you. Like, the Lord has worked so much in your life that the world looks at your life and says, why do they spend their money that way? Why do they spend their time? Why do they, not do these things, abstain from certain things? And that's our callings, for us to have Christ as our everything.
Yeah.
What ways do you guys struggle in that way? If we can kind of just lead with transparency here.
I was, as you're talking, I was like guilty.
Yeah.
So with my job, I primarily work with one other dude who is an active Christ follower. And so it's like, there's some encouragement and things like that. But in terms of like me winning the workplace or whatever, it's not like a mission field with me and this other dude. The other thing is, it's a very black and white. What I do is a very black and white science-based thing. And so it's like, it's easy for me to compartmentalize my craft. And it's like, well, I don't really need Jesus or faith, or however you want to categorize that. Like, I don't necessarily need that to accomplish what it is I need to do at work. And so I can be very guilty of kind of putting my walk with the Lord in a piece of Tupperware and putting it in the side while I do my job. And then I'll put that hat back on whenever, whatever. I'm at life group, I'm at church, it's more organic or whatever. But I'm guilty of parsing it up sometimes.
Absolutely.
In appropriate ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're speaking of just like Jesus being everything. Is that what you're?
Yeah.
I think one of the things, especially out of this passage, to me is, don't take this the wrong way. I'm trying to think about how I want to articulate this, but it's like, hey, when I am confronted with weakness or foolishness that still resides in me, I get to say, oh man, God did not save me because I was strong or because I was wise, right? He actually gets glory in this transforming work of grace he's doing in me. And so, just as that's what every single day, we're probably confronted with our own weakness, our own foolishness, things like that just come out of us in relationships or at work or wherever. And knowing that God did not save me because I had reached a threshold of unfoolishness, but he saved me when I was foolish. He saved me when I was weak. And he loves me because he loves me. It truly ministers to my heart by the Spirit of just knowing, oh man, my Father in Christ loves me, not because I'm wise, not because I'm strong, but rather he gets glory in saving somebody weak and foolish like myself. And so it's more of just this heart disposition day to day. Oh, I wrestle with just foolishness and weakness, and praise be to God that he saves people like that. Yeah.
I think authenticity matters so much. We think of Paul as a super Christian, right? And he's like, man, I know what I'm supposed to do, and I don't always do it. Mm-hmm. And the very things that I don't want to do, it's like, there I go again, And so it's like authenticity matters, because Sarah and I have been doing marriage counseling for like maybe 8 or 10 years. And I'm definitely not the guy that's like, listen, I've got this figured out. Just do what I do, and you'll be good. Like
That's what you told me.
yeah, right. I'm very much more so
how's that going for you?
This is the stuff that we struggle with. These are the things that I've screwed up. Where it's just like, man, I'm just learning like you guys, and so I think it matters to be authentic and to not act like. I mean, you guys are pastors, and so I think there's some tension to look or to be or appear a certain way. Because if you're failing at something or if you're weak in a certain area, it's like, you know what I mean? But like to be real and to be like, man, I struggle with this too. I think that matters and that helps you connect with people.
Absolutely.
For sure. The phrase I didn't want to use but keeps coming to my mind is like give grace. Well, give grace to yourself. That's terrible because like people say like forgive yourself. There's a sentiment that's right. Only God can forgive. Only God gives grace. And so
Can't believe you said that.
Can't believe it. Oh my gosh. You should talk to people at Southridge.
Sounds like you're condoning your own sin to me.
Well, that's what I want to avoid. Truly, I'm serious. But it is this like, hey, this passage invites us actually to live in the light of God's grace, right? We don't have to be gracious to ourselves. God has been gracious to us.
Yeah.
He's chosen weak things. He's chosen foolish things. And so it's not a be gracious to yourself. It's live in the light of God's grace and boast in his work, not your own. So that having you talk about that, Luke, was helpful for me.
So I will admit during the sermon I had to listen to it again because verse 30.
Did you fall asleep again?
No, I got like my brain was kind of like
best nap
cat
of your life.
Yeah, it's like I'm like a cat chasing a laser. Okay, and verse 30 is my favorite verse in this section. I like lists, and so we see a clear list rise up because of him, and then we see these attributes, and I think it's a good reminder that, hey man, we're all in different areas of those attributes. Like we haven't fully arrived when it comes to, this idea of sanctification or wisdom. And so I was kind of thinking about the antidote for these, because we see wisdom, righteousness, sanctification, and redemption. So I wrote down wisdom delivers us from sin. Righteousness delivers us from sin's penalty. Sanctification delivers us from sin's power. Redemption delivers us from sin's presence. And boasting in the Lord, verse 31, delivers us from sin's pride. And again, just a contrast of, like, sometimes I feel like I'm doing better with some of that stuff. And other times I'm failing. But it's just that reminder of grace. Of it's like, hey, man, we're all in this path of sanctification. And some seasons are going to be better than others. Some days will be better than others. But to give grace to each other and to ourselves and to know that God's there.
That's
regardless.
Good. Yeah.
That's good. Well, we appreciate you guys coming on to our podcast today.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Any last words or anything like that?
Not that would be
okay, good.
necessary for the podcast.
The thing that I'm trying to keep in mind, like our life group is working through 1 Corinthians. Yeah.
I guess he does. I guess you have the last word.
I actually do have
Well, I actually have the last word too. If you're going to, I'll talk
so,
about it. Shoot, I'll go next.
It's a good reminder to me. Like, I think we can, at the leadership level, it's easy for us to kind of take pot shots at 1 Corinthians and be like, these people are jacked up.
That's
like,
right.
Here's a good case study of what not to be, of how not, like, wait till we get to chapter 5, like, there's a lot of fun stuff coming up of all kinds of things that they do. And we're like, glad I'm not like Corinth, you know what I mean? But it's like, well, actually, like, if you look at the news, if you look at social media, if you look at people, we got all kinds of stuff messed up, even way more than them. And so it's a good reminder to, like, take heed if you think you stand, lest you fall. Because, man, without God, like we talked about our story of Jesus saying, it's like, well, I could be way worse than Corinth if it weren't for the grace of God.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can I share something? Do I have permission? Your permission to share more?
No. We're actually done.
So it's over.
Yeah.
Well, so honestly, this passage is meaningful to me. Kind of, the Lord used it in pretty mighty ways in my life when I was first called to church revitalization, probably about 8 or 9 years ago. And honestly, maybe this is helpful for people at Freshwater of just, you guys have a real passion and what's going on in New Bloomfield and other places. One of the ways the Lord used this passage in my life to kind of call me into revitalization work is, you drive through Jeff City, you drive through rural Missouri, and what do you see all over the place? You see like tiny, relatively empty churches, right? And there is nothing about a church like that looks strong, that looks particularly wise, that looks particularly noble in the world's eyes, right?
Yeah.
And just one of the things the Lord did for me with this passage probably about 8 or 9 years ago was, hey, God chose things like that to display His glory, And it was this passage in particular was how the Lord called me initially into church revitalization work. And so it just was like, I don't know, maybe that's helpful for people of like, hey, this we certainly apply this to our own selves, right? We are weak, we're foolish, but man, sometimes the world can look at a church that's small, struggling, and the Lord chose things like that to shame the strong, to shame the wise, to display His glory. And so I honestly, more than anything, I just want to encourage the work that you guys are doing, and and may God multiply it in by His grace. Yeah.
Amen. Thanks for sharing that. All right, guys.
Good reminder.
See you next week. Also, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.